So I feel really silly because last week, actually exactly a week ago, I had a book celebration, book launch, where a few people attended the event. It was virtual, and I shared a whole bunch of stuff about the story behind my book. It's all the same forest, but I forgot to press record. I remembered in the middle of the session, so I figured I would go ahead and just re-record today the details about how this story came to be, and I can try to link it to what I did remember to record, or I'll just do a separate video. I thought it would be nice because I can at least put this on YouTube and then everyone's privacy is protected. So I'm going to go through the behind the scenes of how I came up with this story, if anyone is interested in hearing it. So I feel like this actually starts a long time ago. I think when I first moved to New York City, I did some kind of workshop where we were instructed to like dream about goals we have for our life. And I remember one of my goals that I wrote down, I actually wrote it down, was I want to write a book one day. And I think it was a children's book. And this is a children's book, but I'll get more into that later. It's for everyone, but yeah, I'll share more about that later. But I do remember writing it down as like a bucket list goal. Like, I want to one day create a book. I never thought I would actually draw a book because I'm not a trained artist. I love art and I try my best, but yeah, so that was, I think that's really where the story begins. And years later, Squiggles was around, all that kind of stuff. I ended up right around the time that she was diagnosed with kidney disease. That's kind of where the story starts again. I was so anxious. When Squiggles was diagnosed with kidney disease, I was really struggling with it. It was right around the time I had friends getting married and I couldn't even eat. I brought her to the vet. She was fine. She was dehydrated. They gave her fluids, but her levels were different. And it felt like the beginning of the end for me. And even though she ended up living many years after her diagnosis, which I'm so grateful for, but I really struggled in the years following the diagnosis, and there were many vacations that I missed out on. My husband went to Scotland and Switzerland and other places, and I just was like, yeah, I'm not gonna go. I don't want to. And I actually had to work. I worked with a therapist because my anxiety, not just about losing her, but possibly losing her when I wasn't around, it was so intense. And so I had to really just work with the idea that there was a possibility that if I wasn't home, she might pass away when I wasn't there. And it was a really hard pill to kind of swallow. But eventually I had really close friends that lived in New York, and they moved to Amsterdam. And I missed them. They were like my best friends, really good friends. And so I decided, after Squiggles this was probably a couple years after she was diagnosed, I decided to go on a 5-day trip to Amsterdam, which was like huge. I hadn't left her for that long, in a very long time. I had a close friend who was able to watch her for me. And so I went with my husband, who was, I guess, my boyfriend at the time, but I went with him, and yeah, we were there for 5 days, and it was a really good trip. Squiggles was fine. I got back to her afterwards, but something happened on that trip. I think because I was anxious and I did miss her, but I was also enjoying myself, and we had this really beautiful day. It was in the Bosch Forest of Amsterdam. I'm not sure if any of you have been, but it's this like gorgeous setting, and it was such a magical day. And I had this moment where I realized my friends who moved from New York, I couldn't see them anymore when I was in New York, right? They were in Amsterdam. I couldn't see them, but it didn't mean that they didn't exist over in Amsterdam. Like, I knew they were there even though I couldn't see them. And even though I was in Amsterdam in that moment, I knew that Squiggles was at home, and I couldn't see her. I couldn't be with her, but I knew she was there. And I had this like revelation that one day when she was eventually gone and I couldn't see her, it didn't mean that she wasn't there in some way. And it was really powerful. I didn't just think this thought, I really like felt a knowing about it. And she was still fine. She lived, I think, 3 years after that. But that idea really stuck with me. And before I get into that, so after that day in the forest, I wanted to make sure, because it wasn't just that revelation. I had a lot of really beautiful insights and things that I was thinking about and talking about. And so I wanted to write them all down. And so I opened up, I guess it was my iPad. I took notes of everything. And then on the flight home, I took out my laptop. I was like, I just want to make sure I type all of this out because I don't want to forget anything. It's so easy for us to forget things. And I typed out what happened, and it flowed out of me as a poem. I don't know how else to say it. I didn't plan to write a poem. I just started typing and it started rhyming, and I was like, I'm just going to go with this. And it kept going. And by the time I landed, about 90%, it was done. Like the poem was basically done. And so I loved the poem. I sat on it for years. I looked into getting it illustrated as well. I looked into artists who could possibly create it, but nothing really fit. And then when Squiggles did eventually pass away, I knew I wanted to create the poem. It actually changed. There was one word in the poem before she died that after she passed away, I changed it, and it really made the poem what it's supposed to be. It really tells like not a whole new story, but it's so much more cohesive. It makes so much more sense. So after she passed away, that one word changed, and the story was like, oh, this is the story. This is what it's meant to be. And yeah, and so what else? After she passed away, I didn't work on it right away. I was in grief, and I didn't know if I could bring it to life. But another thing happened that's really important about this whole journey. And I had a friend who passed away a couple months after Squiggles died. And this is a friend that I had known since childhood, since second grade. And she was diagnosed with cancer in February and then passed away in July. It was like within 5-6 months. It was wild and awful and so sad. And I went to her funeral, and her husband gave a eulogy at her funeral, and this eulogy was life-changing. He gave the most powerful speech, and one of the things that he said in the speech, I can't repeat it. I won't be able to do it justice, but he gave these 2 words, and he said, "Don't wait." And those words struck me so powerfully. And this was a couple of years ago now. And I feel like I wake up almost every day and I say, don't wait, to myself. Because he said he thought he had his whole life with his wife, my friend, and in an instant, she was gone. And that can happen to any of us. And when he said those words, I was like, of course, my book came to mind. I was like, I don't want to wait. I have this story that I love, that I think I want it to be in the world. I don't want anything to happen to me before I can get it out there. And so after that, a few months later, I was like, I was really missing Squiggles. I opened up my iPad. There's an app called Procreate, and that's how I did all of the drawings in the book. But I was like, let me open it up. I miss Squiggles. And that's when I drew the cover of the book. It just kind of, it came to me. And it took me about 1.5 years to complete all of the images. I had to, set up the poem, figure out what I kind of wanted each page to look like, and I had to just draw it out like one page at a time. I was like, let me just get this one page done. And I remember I started the poem. I did the first page, or the title, the day after my first birthday without Squiggles. So it was December 3rd. And then it was around Christmas. And so I was at my in-laws for a week during Christmas, and I was working on the page every single day. I was just the whole time on the couch working on it. I probably got like 4 or 5 images done just on that break because I was so into it. And then, I had to take a few breaks. I would do a lot, and then it was like really overwhelming. And so I had to pause for a bit. And then I think it was about 1.5 years later, I finished all the images. There was one image in here that I really struggled with, and I had to wait until the end before I was able to do it. But something really cool that happened is my art got better. Like you can see there are some images in here that I think could probably be a little bit better. And then as I started drawing more, I think my skills improved. I can show you one of my favorite images. I don't want to give away too much, but I'm obsessed with this, like the hand on this. I couldn't believe that I drew that hand. I was like, wow, I did that. So yeah, it's been quite the journey, and I love it. I'm just so proud of it. I don't want to sound too like egotistical, but I never, I wrote this thing down like, oh, I want to write a book one day, and then it's like, oh, I guess I did it. It feels very out of body, like, oh, I guess I did this. I don't know. So anyway, it's, the story, I think it's really heartfelt. I think it's playful at times, it's silly at times, it's deep and sad at times, but I think it really encapsulates just how special our pets are and how much Squiggles meant to me. It was as much about the process as the final outcome for me. And because I am so extra, I added this poetry exercise to it, because I really do feel like creating and accessing this other realm that's within all of us. We're all artists, we can all create. It's a way for us to process life in a way that just speaking about it can't. I just feel like art really helps us access this other level of existence and being and healing, really. So I love it. I can't wait for you to read it. And okay, I think that's the gist. I don't know if I'm forgetting anything else from this. I don't think so, but that's the story. That's the most of the story, and maybe I'll do another Q&A or something once it's out. If people have questions about the story, I'm happy to answer them. So okay, thanks for watching this, and if you have any questions, post them below, because then I can answer here on YouTube. Okay,